There's only front row, basically. So I would cut them off at 15. All right, we're getting close to full. If you're looking for a seat, we're going to have to seat you in this room. Otherwise, we'll have to send you to our overflow room. But there's a couple left down here. There's a handful left up there. Can you raise your hand if you have one next to you? Elizabeth has one next to her. There's some down here. Scooch in tight. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. Well, if you need to sit throughout, it's going to be long. All right, well, let's get started. Everybody, thank you so much for coming. This really warms my heart to see a packed room. This venue seats 250 people, everybody. So give yourself a hand for showing up for democracy. My name's Andy Nelson. I'm the chair of the Missoula County Democrats. And thank you. And our goal, one of our biggest goals of this year, is to help whoever wins this primary to flip the Western District for a Democrat. So that's why it's incredibly important to get to know these four. They're all very great candidates, so get to know them. We don't have much time until the primary election, which is June 2nd, everybody. Remember that date, June 2nd. Make sure you're registered at your current address. If you moved recently, got to change your registration, so make sure those things are in order. It's going to be a good evening of great conversation. Lee Banville, everybody. Lee is go ahead, give him a hand. He is a professor from the School of Journalism and was actually my professor for media history and literacy. I recommend everybody take that course. I don't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, what else am I? Very important, I don't want to forget. I also want to take the time to acknowledge that we are on the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. And today we honor the path they have always shown in caring for this place and generations to come. The cards you were handed when you checked in, those are question cards. So if you have a question that you would like to offer the panel, write it down. We have volunteers walking around collecting them throughout the night. Just pass them down the aisle and we will take them. We will try to get to as many as possible, but I already have a stack. So the earlier you write it, the better chance it will be to get in. Lee has a list of questions he will ask first, and then the latter half of the evening will be questions from the audience. So write your questions on those things. Lastly, you should have also received an invitation to the Pat and Carol Williams dinner. This is a fundraiser put on by the Missoula County Democrats every 2 years. One, to honor the legacy of Pat and Carol and the Williams family and all their contributions they've given to this state, and also to fundraise for Democratic candidates. So, very important because we need to get a lot of those folks past the finish line. We hope you can attend on May 2nd at the Holiday Inn downtown. With that, I'm going to pass the mic on to Lee Banville.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is a real honor to be able to lead. This is not a debate, although I did work for a guy who moderated 12 presidential debates. I know what that's like. That's not what this is. This is a conversation that I'll be the loud guy asking too many questions in, but I want to ensure that as many people and as many voices get heard in the conversation with these 4 candidates so that you guys can kind of build your thoughts about each one individually and decide where your interests lie. I'll give you the rules. They're pretty limited. The first question, the hardest hitting question I will ask as a journalist, will be the first one to say, introduce yourself and tell us why you're running. Each candidate will have 2.5 minutes to respond to that question. And then for each question after that, whether it comes from me or it comes from you, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. I know it's not a lot of time, but we want to make sure that there's an equal opportunity for all candidates to engage equally. I also, Andy left out that many of you, when you pre-registered for this event, also sent in questions. And man, you guys are serious. There's some really good questions in here. So I'm going to actually ask many of your questions that were already submitted, and then I'm going to get a pile that will come in via the card that I hope you have very nice handwriting so I can read it. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to do something professors generally don't do, which is I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to allow the candidates each 2.5 minutes to basically introduce themselves, and then we'll outline what it is that they hope to achieve by running for this position. So obviously, I guess we should probably introduce them. No one's done that yet. They're going to introduce themselves, but I will, alphabetically, we have Ryan Bussey, then we have Russ Cleveland, Sam Forstag, and Matt Raines. And so in the interest of, I have a BA name, so like I've always got to go first, I'm going to start with Matt Raines. You get to introduce yourself first.
Thank you. So Matt Raines, excited. I got into this race because to me, we need somebody in Congress that has a robust amount of firsthand experience. First of all, that keeps you away from lobbyists. And then somebody who's authentically Montana. And right now, to me, unless you're Native American, you blow me out of the water, or you're related to French fur trappers. My background goes back to the 1860s. My great-great-grandmother pioneered here in Montana. And I grew up on the family ranch that goes back to the 1890s. With growing up, graduated, and went to West Point. So served as a Montana cadet. In the military, I flew Blackhawks, was an Army captain, and served in Iraq, which is more important now than ever with what is going on in Iran. Following that, traveled the world, did over 60 countries doing humanitarian photojournalism. Was in a lot of third world countries from Africa, Middle East, Asia. Then came back to the U.S., got my MBA from Washington University, inspected power plants for about 4 years. I travel around the country, do about $1 million worth of repair findings on coal and gas plants, and then hand that over to the Boilermakers. At that point, I met my future wife. She had a horse, I had a horse ranch, and so convinced her to come back to Montana. On the family ranch, we raise quarter horses. We have about 30 head, and then the last 5 years, I worked at Montana Farmers Union. And as chief of staff there, one of the projects I'm most proud of, we started the first of its kind in the nation USDA meat processing co-op. And what that is here in Montana, you have to be a Montana to be the owner. And we have about 60, 70 members. With that, they control their own supply. And so they are retailing their own livestock. That's cutting out the corporations. That's cutting out the middleman, the big packing plants. And so a huge success to bring that revenue back into our ranching and farming community. And so with me, I know that Congress desperately needs somebody that understands Montana, the military, the world, and that type of person can bring the institutional knowledge to Congress, not relying on the lobbyists. And so, yeah, I am damn proud of my roots, and I am excited to get into Congress and represent Montana.
I'm picking up well.
Thank you, Matt. Sam, go ahead.
Can you guys stand up when you speak? It would be helpful.
They might have to pick up the mics. I don't know if that
Okay.
will.
All right.
Hey all, I'm Sam Forstack. I spent the last 8 years working as a wildland firefighter across western Montana, across the west, the last 4 working as a smoke jumper, and the last 2 jumping right here in Missoula, Montana. I live on the edge of town and traffic was a pain getting over here. I spent the last couple of years as a leader in my union's local in the United States Forest Service, the National Federation of Federal Employees, while Doge and Elon Musk came after our public lands and our public servants and gutted about a quarter of the agency just last year alone. And most of the people that they fired, most of my coworkers and union members that they came after were making less than $20 an hour, swinging tools in the woods and conducting the science it takes to be good stewards of our public lands. And if any of you are following the news, you know that they're not done. They just announced their latest round of reorganization, and they are finding ways to cut our public lands agencies off from decision makers and yet somehow still take them further away from all of us on the ground doing the work. And in the course of all of that, well, we reached out to our congressperson, Ryan Zinke, 4 or 5 times, and we got crickets. And I decided that if they are going to come after my coworkers and my union members' jobs, I'm going to come take theirs. And that is what this campaign is about. And for the last decade or so, well, I've worked in between fire seasons here in Montana doing the work for organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, fighting for our constitutional freedoms in places where, well, state legislature, some people made it their mission to undermine some of our basic rights to human dignity and to living with a life the way we choose to live it without government getting in the middle of all of that. And I worked for the State Library Association. I worked for a coalition of homeless shelters that we started with the Poverello Center right here in town and ended up bringing a dozen homeless shelters together to organize and put a policy platform together and get a bill passed into law, even when we had the first Republican supermajority in history here in Montana. That is how, to date, I've got about 32 Montana legislators from both parties endorsing this campaign. Senator Bernie Sanders is supporting this campaign along with 4 Republicans that served in the Montana legislature, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and the Montana AFL-CIO, along with a whole bunch of unions, because we have not had a union member as a major party nominee for Congress in over a decade, and that is a damn shame. In a state with the richest, deepest union history in this country. I'm running to change that, and I'm running to say that if we want working class representation in Congress, let's get a working class person to Congress so we can fight for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Russ?
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Russ Cleveland. I'm just running for U.S. House, Montana's 1st Congressional District. Yesterday marks a year that I've been out on the road campaigning for this position, meeting tens of thousands of Montanans, but my journey started a long time before that. I'm running to restore representation based in integrity again, something that our political system has lost. I grew up down in the Bitterroot Valley, left Montana originally to join the U.S. Navy, served honorably in the Navy before going on to study in nutrition and eventually an MBA. Worked in finance for almost a decade, managing budgets of $300 million and larger. An important quality right now to get a hold of this national debt that is out of control, growing by $1 trillion every 100 days at this point. I eventually went on though to start my own small business, a child care company called Rocky Mountain Kids down in Colorado that I grew from a startup to serve over 9,000 children across 42 locations. But it was a personal journey that brought me back to Montana. We lost our oldest daughter, Madison, to leukemia in 2020. And we were living in Colorado at the time, and it was just one of those sobering moments in life that you realize life is short. You should live where you want to live, around the people you want to be with. And that was here in Montana for me, where my wife and I are raising our other kids now out in St. Regis. My platform, my plan is based, probably not surprisingly, in healthcare. We need a major overhaul of our healthcare system right now. And it's something that, in talking to tens of thousands of Montanans over the last year, is not just a Democratic initiative. It crosses party lines. There's people in places like Dillon and Eureka who were paying $300-400 a month that are now paying $2,900, $3,000 a month for healthcare. That should not happen in this country or anywhere. My second initiative is affordability. Having run a child care company, I'm prepared to actually tackle this issue that is not just in Montana, but it's coast to coast. We can afford universal child care. Every dollar invested in that system would bring $4 to $9 back to local economy. Child care is a major part of our economy. But we can't do any of those things until we tackle the big issue at hand, which is dark money in politics. And that is why I'm proud to have ran on individual contributions only, to show that we can run a strong campaign without selling our soul to do it. So again, I'm Russ Cleveland running for U.S. House. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. And Russ.
All right. Hey, I want to thank everybody for being here. It's a hopeful thing to see this many people wanting to make the world a better place in the same room. That's good. But I also want to acknowledge that these are not normal times. They're pretty dark times we're living in when we have masked ICE agents killing American citizens, zip-tying kids in schools, terrorizing entire cities. That is not normal. It's not normal when we have hundreds, if not thousands, of young girls and women who have been abused and trafficked, and the most powerful, wealthy men in this country have not been held to account or prosecuted. None of that is normal. It's not normal when kids like mine, Sarah and I have lived in the Flathead Valley for 31 years. It's a place that gave us a chance. You know, I showed up there as a ranch kid, and Montana made me a better person. And Sarah and I bounced around the valley for a long time renting homes, and then we bought our first house in Kalispell for $127,000. And it felt like $1 million to us, you know, or $2 million now. But man, did it feel good. And it's not normal that our kids, my two kids, Badge and Lander, 18 and 21, that I don't think they are going to have that same opportunity unless we make a difference. I want you to know, not long after I moved to Montana, I was following a dream. I worked in the gun industry because I grew up on a farm and ranch, and I thought, man, I'm just going to get paid to hunt and fish. I thought that's what the job was going to be like, but that's not what it was like. It was hard work. I'm proud of helping grow a gun company. But during that time, I also realized that the politics that were being espoused by the industry I was in were contrary and dangerous to the things that I cared about. And so this place changed me, and I went to work fighting for Montana, even sometimes, oftentimes at my own personal peril. When the Badger 2 medicine came under the sights of big industrial companies that wanted to drill all over that sacred place, I stood up and said no. I went to Washington, D.C. I fought that, and that's when really the sacrifice started for me, because my job was in peril almost every day. But this place was more important to me than that. I think it's time in these dark times, these serious times that we're in, we should elect a fighter, somebody with integrity, somebody ready to sacrifice for this place. I've done it. I'm excited to do it again. I'm excited to see you all here tonight. Ryan Bussey, I'd love to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now I'm going to ask a couple questions, but really I'm going to ask questions they want me to ask. But I've got a couple. One is, first-term members of Congress spend a lot of time. They're called backbenchers, right? They're kind of learning the rules, kind of working with your party, kind of figuring out where your office is, building a staff, dealing with constituent needs. But you also have the opportunity to draft legislation. And so I'd like to know from each of you, what's going to be the first piece of legislation you author, and what should that tell us about your political beliefs and your interests? And if I don't mind, I'm going to start with Russ.
Just rolling the dice now, huh?
Yeah. It's keep everybody guessing. Who are we going to call?
I think, like I said, I think the most imperative thing we can do is to attack corruption first. All these other bills sound great, But until we get this corrupt Congress under control, and that largely starts with money and politics, we're going to struggle to do any of those things. And so I'm part of several coalitions nationwide of candidates running right now so that we aren't alone on day one entering Congress. One of them I helped start called Balance and Accountability. The goal is to take back Congress. And to do that, we have to do things like ending stock trading. We have to look at things like term limits. We have to put a moratorium in place between lobbying and public service. We have to put a universal code of ethics in place for our judiciary system. These are imperative things that are going to actually restore that morality back in DC, which nobody has trust on right now. And so that is my goal. That first piece of legislation is going to be based on rebuilding trust with the American people. And we do that by starting to cut the toxicity out of DC, which starts with dark money and politics.
Ryan.
You know, I think one of the reasons we're in this dark spot in this country is because, look, there have been bad things done in D.C. There's no doubt about it. There's probably more bad things, maybe some incendiary tweets flying around right now. Who knows? We might be in another war by the time we get out of here. But the truth is, Democrats need to stand up and deliver. We need to hold ourselves to a higher standard than our opposition. Our rhetoric and our action need to match up. And the reason voters have been frustrated is because we haven't, our party, my party, has not done enough of that. So universal health care, I'm running hard on it. I think we're 50 years behind the curve. We're behind every industrialized country. We should stand up and admit and fight for this. It's what has to happen. We all know it. There's Democratic leaders in Washington, D.C. who know it, and they don't have the political courage to say it. I have the political courage to say it. You should demand that your representatives have the political courage to say what's right and fight for what's right. I'm an impatient person. I want to get things done. Who would want to leave Montana? Who would want to leave all of this to go to Washington, D.C. unless you are going to get things done? So I'm impatient. I want to go back there. I want to get this done. I want to fight for it. And if that means nudging my own party a little bit, it's past time to do it.
Let's go with Sam. It's like whoever's not ready with the mic, that's who I'm going to call on.
Absolutely, and I want to acknowledge the great proposals that Russ and Ryan just mentioned. What is at the core of all of our broken systems is precisely what Russ just mentioned. It is the disgusting, outrageous amount of money in politics that makes it so damn rare and so damn hard for a working person, somebody who is not already a millionaire, to end up in the United States Congress. And one of those broken systems is healthcare. It's exactly what Ryan was just talking about. The first thing that most of the folks I know across this state, not just for the last year, for the last 5 or 10 years, are talking about is the fact that our housing prices have gone up 3 or 4 times. When I first got my apartment in Missoula in 2012, I was paying $300 a month, and that was not a screaming deal. And I know folks who are looking at $1,500 or $1,600 a month just for a bedroom in this city. That is a broken system of housing that too many people are stuck in while wages have not kept up. And the first thing that we should be addressing, coming from a state that has the least affordable housing market in the country, is how do we tackle a housing crisis like a real crisis? And the hopeful thing is that we've done that before. We have had a housing crisis in this country after World War II with an entire generation of folks moving back from overseas, ready to buy homes and build families. And you know what we did? We stepped in on a bipartisan basis and we invested billions of dollars and we built those homes. And we have models like the Community Development Block Grant that we should be investing the sort of resources we're investing in tax cuts for the richest people in this country and for large corporations, because that is not where the need is right now. The need is with a whole lot of working people who are scraping by even when they work 2 or 3 jobs. First bill I would be authoring here is how do we invest big, bold amounts of money in housing to start fixing that.
Let me guess, it's my turn.
Yeah, it is your turn.
So, 2 parts to the question. I'll start with the insinuation that the first year or 2 that you're there, you don't get anything done. That's bullshit. Because when you show up with experience and knowledge and understanding, I've already had a lot of people that I've been in communication with, legislators, that
love my background and experience. I have lived in about every culture and religion in the world. I understand what's going on from a completely different perspective. That is vital to being effective and efficient in Congress. And so it's already happening where people are interested and hoping that I'm able to bring my firsthand experience to Congress. Day one type bills, we got to fix healthcare. That is the one thing right now that out of the gate, our health is under attack. Medicaid's under attack. Our hospitals are under attack. Our services are under attack. The ACA subsidies have to get funded. That is a shame that Congress isn't running to make sure that we can afford our own health care. And it's not the big picture, it is taking care of Montanans right here, right now with what's going on. And so we absolutely need to make sure that our health, when I was a kid, I was doctored out of a vet bag because most of the time my parents were scared to go to the hospital. We didn't know how much it would cost. We're headed back there. We have to stop it and get it fixed.
Probably most of the people in this room are not going to love my next question. So, the last decade has not been great for Democrats. Democrats won a re-election for governor in 2016 and a Senate race in 2018 and lost every other statewide and federal election in the state. What's the lessons you've learned from those experiences, and how is that informing how you think about your campaigns? And I will start with Matt, who called my question BS, which I liked.
That's fair. I guess I deserve it. So first of all, my background, a lot of my family's Republican. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, they're ranchers. And so where I sit, I'm a Democrat through and through because Democrats made rural Montana. Our co-ops were out there putting electric, gas, utilities, telephones, everything out in these communities corporations didn't give a damn about. And we need to get back to our fundamentals and make sure that Montana is being taken care of. And so what you can do as a rancher, sit down with other farmers and ranchers who are in these rural communities that have turned completely red and start having the conversations. They won't listen to somebody they don't trust, but they will sit down with a peer and have a genuine conversation. And so that's where we can start to do that. And then the other frustration with what we've had for the last, 10, 15 years is we've been dealing with New Jersey and Maryland and Minnesota and California. We need a legit Montanan who will go to Montanans and say, hey guys, let's fix our shit that we have going on right now. We can make this like we grew up. And they're ready for it. They're hungry for it. Most of this district is independent now. The majority of this district is independent because they're tired of the Trump rhetoric. They want something different, but they want something different from someone they trust.
Ryan.
Well, some of you might know I have some experience with these tough elections. 2 years ago, I ran for governor. It was a tough election. We all lived it. I see supporters of our election, of our race here in this room, and I want to say thank you. It meant a lot. What I learned on that race and what I know on this one is that the beauty, this place that makes us better people, this non-judgmental, freedom-loving place that we all love so much, it's still here. There's been a partisan fever that's been laid over the top of us for a few years here. I lived it, I experienced it, lost that election, but we held 187 in-person events. I was in people's homes. And I know the magic is still there. I want to say 2026 is a whole new year, really is. After that election loss in 2024, Governor Schweitzer called me and he said, hey, you don't stop. You take what you built, you take what you learned, you take what you know you can do and do better, and you put it to work and you win the next one. That's what Governor Schweitzer did. He lost his first race, then he won his second one. He used that momentum. I want you to know now, this is a hopeful time. As dark as it can feel, the people, the swing voters, the Republicans that are out there, I talk to them all the time, they're not worried about this culture war stuff anymore. They have the same lived experience as you, as your friends, as your kids. They're worried about health care, just like we are. They're worried about housing, just like we are. We have to be the kind of Democrats, I have to be the kind of Democrat that offers them something big that they can believe in, that gets the job done, wins this race. That's what this is about. Think about putting a blue flag here. It's going to happen.
Russ? So I consider myself an independent Democrat. And what does that mean? That means I'm not beholden to the Democratic Party. What we have right now is people putting party before the needs of everyday people. If we want to get away from that, that is where we have to start. That is where we lead the charge. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. That's why I'm seeing crowds of 80, 90 people in places like Dillon, Montana, where half of them aren't Democrat. Or Eureka, 60 plus people where 2/3 of them are not Democrat. How do we pull those type of people? Stop leading with party. Speak to the issues. And I'm not talking about Democratic Party and DC issues. I'm talking about Montana Democrats. We are different here. We lead the charge, just like we're doing on the Montana plan, yet again, putting corruption in its place, right? Montana's leading the way. 22 other states are following with that initiative. It's amazing. And we can do that in rebranding what the Democratic Party actually looks like and means. But we have to start listening to people, not corporations, not PACs, not special interest groups. It all starts with you all. We are supposed to be an extension of your voice. That is how this system is supposed to work. And that's what I intend to do as your representative. Thanks.
Well, it is a shame that we've got so little time for such a big question. I would boil down my frustrations with the National Democratic Party and how we have gotten here into 3 buckets. It is policy, it is representation, and it is tone. And on the policy, I looked around after the last election and I saw a National Democratic Party that seemed to draw all of the wrong lessons from our losses. The lessons that we needed to become more like the Republican Party to win over working class voters and union members and young people who left the party behind. And the people I know, my coworkers or union members who voted some of these schlubs into office that are doing this to our country, did not do so because of a unique ideological conservatism that Donald Trump was espousing. That to me seems self-evident. They did it because when I would talk to them and say, why did you vote for these guys? When they're gutting the agency that we work for and they're firing a whole lot of working people, they'd say, well, you know, both parties are just the same. And somehow we had a national party that was trying to make them a little bit more same, thinking that that was going to get them out of this hole that we've dug for ourselves. So if we want to win back all of the people that used to be and need to be the base of our party, working people and union members and young people, we need big, bold policies. We need to talk about the fact that fixing housing and healthcare and childcare, so we have universal childcare at pre-K, so we have free healthcare for every working person in this country, is going to cost a lot of money, and we've got all that money. We're just spending it on tax cuts for the richest people in this country right now. And we can fix that. And if we want to win back working class people and union members, well, let's run a working class person and a union member who knows what it's like to be on the wrong side of those systems. And if we want to do that, we cannot just say you should be more angry at the other guys than you are at us, because that doesn't get us anywhere. Politics is supposed to be about hope, and hope is about how we come together to pass those policies that help working people, because it is not left and right, it is top and bottom in this country, and that seems so clear to me. That's what this campaign is about.
I'm going to ask one of the questions that was submitted ahead of time. It's kind of long, so you guys need to edit your questions, but that's okay. But it's... Wait. I did?
I got called out for starting.
Yeah, I was picking up.
I mean, I'll take the floor if you want to give it to me one more time.
Well, we'll talk later. I'm being fair. I'm a journalist. Well, I am. But anyway, so this is a question. You got to listen to all of it because there's a parentheses. There's a new work requirement that coming for Medicaid starting July 1st. Tens of thousands of eligible Medicaid recipients across the state are at risk of losing health care that they rely on. What would you do to combat this attack on our healthcare system? Then comes the parentheses. I would love the candidates to get a little specific without jumping to the, and this is going to sound like I'm picking on people, but I'm not, the we need universal health care solution. I agree with that, but, well, I'm not saying that. The person said that. But just trying to focus on the historic Medicaid cuts we're seeing this year, what's your plan to address that? Let's start with Ryan.
This Medicaid cut issue is immoral. It's going to be a disaster for the state. It's going to be a disaster for rural health care, even for hospitals like the ones in Missoula and Kalispell and Bozeman. It didn't have to happen. Ryan Zinke proudly voted for this Medicaid cut, this work requirement cut in the big, beautiful bill. It's tough for me to say that. I usually have other B words for it. It's immoral. I was just in Lake County not long ago. There's 2,000 people going to lose their Medicaid coverage there. And just up the road from there, we're building a new Yellowstone club where people are going to have $20 and $30 and $40 million homes so they can spend a couple weeks a year there. We're making the wrong choices, okay? We have to restore full Medicaid funding, and we should be pushing. This is just another example of the way wealth has been transferred up. Medicaid is cut. SNAP is cut. All of it. Meanwhile, we're giving big tax breaks. We're spending $191 billion on ICE. We're spending $33 million a day on Venezuela, $1.5 billion on Iran per day. We're making the wrong choices. It's not that we don't have the money. We're making the wrong choices. Working people, especially 60% of the people on Medicaid are kids or elderly folks. And we're placing work requirements. We're talking about work requirements? Come on. We're a better country than that. We really are. We're in an immoral place. We need principled, moral leaders to stand up and fight for the people who need it most, because they don't have representation. They don't have lobbyists. They don't have attorneys. They don't have people that fly around in private jets and do their favors for them. That's what we're supposed to do. I hope we can get it done.
Russ?
Yeah, I've taken it from hope to an actual strategy, because here's the thing. I've lived this as a parent. I told you about Madison, who was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 12. Her first bill for just 1 month of care with the best insurance I could get as a small business owner was over $300,000 after insurance. Years later, we moved back to Montana. My youngest daughter was diagnosed with a different rare lung disease. The only medication that could cure her, insurance didn't cover. $10,000 a dose for that once a month. We have to get away from this for-profit healthcare system that treats healthcare like a Wall Street business. It is not, and it shouldn't be. And we do that. We can. I know they don't want to hear universal healthcare, but guess who passed universal healthcare today? It launches April 13th. Mexico. Come on. We can do this. And we do it with just a 5% tax on only our billionaire class. 986 people would put $4.4 trillion a year into our revenue, 1.3 of which would cover universal health care, 1.1 would cover universal child care, and we'd still have 2.1 left over to start paying off the $40 trillion in debt that we have as a country. It is that simple, and I'll fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you to whoever asked this question through Lee Vanville here, because details matter. And I was raised largely by a single mom who was still an ICU nurse, and she would tell anybody in this room that we've got universal health care in this country right now. You just don't get it until you show up in the emergency room. And that is the least effective, most costly, and least compassionate way that we can possibly provide a basic need like health care to people. And if we want to fix that, the details matter. So what I am proposing here is that we provide free healthcare for every working class person in this country. And how do we do that? Well, we make it so that every person, regardless of age, has the option to buy into the part of our system that actually works into Medicare. And we plug up the holes like vision and hearing and dental, because that is part of real comprehensive healthcare coverage. And we don't just renew those ACA subsidies, we should radically expand them. Because if we expanded the benchmark rate so that everybody up to 500% of the federal poverty level instead of 150% had free health care, well, that would mean everyone making up to $70,000 or $80,000 a year has free health care, and we don't have to let Republicans say we're forcing anybody into government-run health care. Because right now, I'm being forced into the private health insurance corporation system where you're paying $700, $800, $900 a month for bad health care that doesn't get you a lick of care until you spend $12,000 a year. And I think if we all had the freedom to choose to join that system, well, private health insurance corporations would wither, because I don't know anybody who wants to stick around on United Healthcare's insurance when they got the chance to join Medicare. And if those private health insurance corporations can outcompete Medicare, which has a lower overhead cost, with some plan that they've been hiding, I'd love to see where it's been the last 30 years, because I ain't seen it.
So this question really highlights the urgency of making sure that we flip the seat from red to blue. Because if you look at the gains, it's the smoke and mirrors crap that's coming out of this administration. They are taking the Medicaid cuts, which are perpetual, all the way out. And they just came back and they're like, Montana's going to get $300 million to give to your hospitals. Yay, go spend it. It has to be spent by October. Why by October? Because voting's in November. This is a disgusting attempt to buy and manipulate Montana voters, to tee up Republicans to have this, look at us, save health care. But what they did was they didn't just take the money to invest into us. No, they're taking a splash out, and they've stolen from us for years down the road. This has to be addressed by flipping the U.S. House. We have to get in there and take the majority back so we can start putting a wall up against this administration and these games, because none of this has to do with our health care, our health, our future, our lives. This is all gamesmanship. It is disgusting, and we need to get it out of the government.
I've got a question. There are 435 members of Congress and 100 senators, and I'm curious if any one of them serves as sort of a model of the kind of legislator you hope to be, and why. First, let's go Sam.
Well, I mentioned earlier that this campaign is endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders. So it's probably no surprise that I am inspired by the work that he has done, because he has spoken for principle, he has spoken for the things that working people in this country need for decades, even when that was a lonely voice in the wilderness. And right now, when we have a campaign that was endorsed day one by Senator Bernie Sanders, and over the last 3 months by 32 Montana legislators, including 4 Republicans, we exist in a moment where policies like free health care for every working person in this country, policies like universal child care and pre-K, and like actually tackling a broken housing system are actually within grasp. And where a lot of working people who might have voted the other way last election, a lot of people who I work with, some people who I'm friends with, are ready for something different. And this is how we show them something different. We show them something different with big, bold policy changes that are clear and comprehensible, and that are going to be executed and delivered in comprehensible timelines. Because if you are working 2 jobs or 3 jobs like I did the whole time that I was here at the University of Montana and still ended up paying rent on a credit card, you don't have 10 years to wait to fix a housing system. You don't have a decade to wait for healthcare that you can afford. This is our chance to do that. Progress has never moved in a straight line in this country. It has always moved in fits and bursts. And right now, we have a chance for a burst of progress if we can just show working people who feel left behind by both parties what it looks like to have a working person running for Congress who is actually going to help them with the experience it takes to deliver. That is me. That is this campaign. I cannot do it on my own. I'd love your help.
So we had this question at another event, and sitting, I
really?
assume it's actual current congressman.
Yeah.
I
mean, unless you want to go really cool and weird and historical, yeah, I'd be down with that.
No, I would go straight to Tester, but
Well, that's all right.
no, Jason Crow. I have a lot of respect for him. With my military background, the West Point, the experience, it really matters. We're at a unique time, not a good unique time in any way, shape, or form. This war by choice that was done in Iran, and it was, again, as far as I can tell, smoke and mirrors, gamesmanship, because Trump didn't want to own up to what was going on in the media. And we have put ourselves in a horrible, horrible situation. We've made Iran, which was not a great nation to begin with, in a much worse situation. And if we leave there, it is going to be backfilled with a regime that is significantly worse than it started. U.S. has made a mess out of that. And so there's congressmen, congresswomen in Congress right now, Democrats and Republicans, but they have military backgrounds and they understand, and they're fighting up against this, and they're trying to hold line. There are a lot of other Republican military people I don't agree with that are not, but we have great ones in there. And so they need support, and they need to beef up those numbers, because serving your country is priceless. Duty on our country, that sits very deep with me at West Point. It's a lot of the inspiration for why I got into this race. It is for Montana and this country, and I hold that dear.
I think there's, we like to castigate Washington, D.C. like everything there is bad. It certainly isn't. A couple examples, just I think of Senator Tammy Duckworth, double amputee, helicopter pilot, first woman in the Senate to ever have a child while she's in the Senate. What a courageous person she is. There's a lot to be learned there. She's a hero. I think of Ruben Gallego, laser focused on affordability, what his constituents want, not what the lobbyists want, fighting against this war. I'm going to give you one that's really going to surprise you. You just got to hang with me a second here. Don't throw anything at me when I say this. Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know why? Not because of her policies. They're crazy, they're dangerous, they're destructive. But she didn't play by the rules when she went to Washington, D.C. She was told she had to move slow, do this thing, act like nothing was important, sit here. She didn't do any of that. She decided to raise her platform like she actually cared about something. Now, I didn't agree with anything that she cared about, but I think Democrats who say things like, they act like the house is on fire, they do a press conference and tell you that there's these existential crises, and then go back in the house and have a drink. No wonder we're not believed. My point here is that it's time for us to act like things are urgent. It's time for us to break a little China. It's time for us to break some norms and get things done faster and build our platform like we mean. Let's get it done.
So the last time this was asked, as Matt said, was at the MSU forum.
Oh man, really? It was MSU? Oh.
I know. This is Grizz country, not cat country, so we won't go there. But listen, my answer then was still as it is today, which is my intent this whole time has been to not hitch my wagon to any other politician. It's time for a fresh start. And it's no offense to those serving, but there's an opportunity to be different, to bring newness, to bring change to this seat. So I'm going to answer it this way. The last Democratic congressman that served the state of Montana was Pat Williams. And it's time we take that back, and that's exactly what I want to do, and those are big shoes to fill, and I am to fill them as your next congressman for Montana. So.
Well, I hope they didn't ask this at MSU. If it is, it's your fault, because this is one of yours. How do you plan to collaborate with and support Montana's Indigenous communities? Let's start with Matt.
Going back to the heritage side, everything that we have as a state here, we owe to the Native American population. We are on the shoulders of greats there for sure. My experience, and this is across the state, you should not feel a difference when you drive between Montana community and onto a reservation. And that is not the case right now. And that is a disgrace to the Native American population that has made this state and this country as great as it is. And so we need to find ways to bring funding and bring jobs and bring opportunity and open the gateways to make sure that if you're Native American, Montanan, it doesn't matter. You have the opportunity to seize the day and have successes. And so it's to work with the population. Again, I'm not going to come from the outside and try to say what needs to be done in any way, shape, or form. My door as a congressman will always be open and available. I don't care if you've been here for 5 months, 5 years, 50 years, 5 generations, or 500 generations. I am here to represent everybody, and I hope to make Montana a better place that way.
You know, in a lot of ways, the struggles that folks face on the reservations in this district, where we have 2 sovereign nations within the confines of Montana's first, are similar to what people are facing across western Montana when they're struggling just to keep your bellies full, your fridge full, a roof over your head. But in a lot of ways, they are completely unique. And what we have not had in recent years is a congressperson who actually acts as a partner, which is what you should do when you have a sovereign nation, that also comprises a whole lot of your constituents. And when I was up at the Blackfeet Reservation last weekend, I got to see an incredible act of community building and resilience. They had their Brave Dogs powwow, they had folks coming together to put plates together to serve food to one another. And what I've heard as I have visited the reservations in this district is that people want to see investments in expanding educational opportunities. They want to see us get rid of the financial need requirement for tuition waivers so that folks can come and get what they are entitled to in our state constitution that guarantees Indian education for all if they so choose, and that financial need will not be the barrier, and that anybody can make it there. They want to see increased investments in healthcare so that nobody is driving 100 miles or more to access basic healthcare, and they want to see their basic constitutional rights defended a lot like we do, but they're under different kinds of attacks from people like Christy Jacobson, who is running for the Republican nomination right now, and who I spent a winter with the ACLU fighting back against when she was trying to roll back basic voting access by repealing same-day voter registration and getting rid of satellite voting offices that people on a lot of reservations depend on. They want to see somebody who listens to those unique needs. That is what I intend to do as our congressperson here in western Montana.
Yeah, I think it's time we had leadership that respected not just tribal sovereignty, but sovereignty across the world. We've gotten to a place where corporations are coming first. And we aren't honoring treaty agreements, we aren't honoring our own laws, our own constitution, and we need leaders who are willing to put that first again. It's not speaking for our tribal nations, it's speaking on behalf of them. And the only way you can do that is to give them a seat back at the table. That's how you do it. I don't have the knowledge that these generations and generations of tribal members do. Why would I be able to speak for them? My job is to deliver that message to DC on behalf of them. And by doing that, we can restore representation to every tribe in Montana. Even though this is just a Western District seat, we have the opportunity to represent every tribe, not just the 2 in our district. And so I just, oddly enough, before this forum, had a meeting with our student group here on campus of some of our tribal members. It's meeting on reservations, it's meeting on campuses, it's hiring staff like I have on my team that are tribal members. We have to bring back that voice, and the only way you can do that is to be a good listener and listen to learn, listen to hear, not to speak. And so that's what I'm committed to do.
Right.
Yeah, 2 things. Like Russ said, first one is listen. Second one is represent. The truth is, so many people in this district, especially Indigenous people, do not have representation in Washington, D.C. When we launched our gubernatorial campaign 2 years ago, where did we do it? We have the whole state, big, beautiful state. Where did we do it? CSKT, right in the classroom there. We want to send a message, right? This is important to me. It's important to our campaign. Native American people are critical to this state. We should be so proud to have all these nations here, the two in our district especially. But back to this representation problem we have here. Big corporations have representation. Native kids who need medical services do not. How is that possible? How did we get so backwards that we're providing representation to those people who are building those $40 million houses up there in the Yellowstone Club up north here? I drove by it on the way down here from Kalispell. They have representation. When I drove to the CSKT, they don't have representation. That's what this is about. We go back there. We're going to fight for these kids just like everybody else in this district. We're going to listen to the Native leaders, what they want, what they need, and we're going to put it to work. That's what this is supposed to be. That's what a representative government is supposed to be about. It's not what it's been about for the past few years, but we're about ready to change that. It's going to be fun.
This is another question from the audience. How do you feel about data centers? There's more to it than that. Well, actually, not a ton. And how can they be regulated? And what role, this is what I'll add, is what role should Congress specifically play in the question about where data centers should or should not be? Let's start with Russ.
Yeah, this is a topic, those of you that have been following me, I've been very passionate about. I attended a meeting in Bonner here a few weeks ago about the proposed data center going in out there. Look, data is a big part of our future, unfortunately, whether we like it or not. What we need to do is demand transparency, because what these companies are looking to do is limit the information so that they are not being held accountable to the demands that we have to make sure that it's not affecting our power. We should demand islanded power. It's not affecting our water. We should demand cooling systems that don't put forever chemicals back into our water systems. We should demand testing on sound. We want to make sure that these aren't emitting sound under 20 hertz to where it's impacting people's organs and health nearby, right? These are things that are achievable, but not unless we have the transparency in place to actually hold these corporations accountable. The other part is union labor. I was disappointed to see that our AFL-CIO union, a strong partner of the Democratic Party here, asked the Democratic Party to relax on negative messaging against data centers, against the will of the people. That's not leadership. We need to hold our partners accountable and say, hey, look, our people are looking for something different here. And what that means is slowing down, putting a moratorium in place, and actually making sure that these elements are covered at the best interest of the Montana people so that we're not the ones taking the hit when all of these data centers come to fruition.
Sam?
This is an issue where we need federal regulation, not just state regulation. And the only federal regulation we're seeing right now is an executive order trying to prevent states from imposing what few restrictions there are on artificial intelligence companies. That is an immense problem, and this is perhaps the biggest existential problem that our next congressperson is going to be facing, and that our government is facing. It is the completely unfettered, unregulated development of a technology that has the potential to automate wide swaths of this economy, that has the potential to concentrate even more power in the hands of very few corporate leaders. This is something that Congress needs to address today. So when it comes to the data centers, we should have 3 strict requirements at a federal level so we don't have a state-by-state race to the bottom. They should be required to provide all of their own power so that none of us are stuck paying even higher bills. They should be required to use the most modern cooling systems. Nothing that is going to be sucking up our precious water, a scarce resource as it is, and putting that right back into the systems, and they should be required to use union labor. But beyond that, these data centers are just an appendage of this industry that is sinking its claws into our government. An industry that is projected to spend $4 trillion just on data center development just this year alone. And we need desperately to be having a broader conversation about strict oversight and regulation of this technology so that we do not end up with 3 corporate leaders who have an immense amount of power in their hands that has the potential to wipe out a whole bunch of jobs. And we cannot let them run the same play that they have run with so many environmental issues, where they try to divide labor and working people and people who care about these environmental issues, because we need to work together. That is the only way we can stand up against an industry that has this amount of resources at its disposal in the timeline that we desperately need to do so.
Matt?
So this is one of those situations where experience comes into play. You're talking about 435 congressmen and congresswomen that are in the House. I rolled around in utilities for 4 years as an engineer. And so I, again, with the firsthand experience, Montana can have somebody that's in the room that makes the decisions. They won't pick out those 435 people that don't know about the industry. And so I bring from Montana the opportunity to get in the room for how this works. And to me, with the data centers, I'm not comfortable with where they are right now. There's advantages, opportunities, the jobs that they can bring for the unions. That's priceless. But they haven't done their due diligence yet. I'm not comfortable that they are ready to come to this state. And that is going in and making sure that it's good for our economy, it's good for our environment, that they have done the research and development to make sure that the heat is captured and brought back in. And if they do, do their own energy consumption, I know that sounds really good for everybody, but that's really dangerous, because that's going to take nuclear. And we don't want a mini nuclear plant being brought in here. So these are all those real world questions that have to be addressed with these data centers. And these corporations have plenty of money to answer these questions and make them right for Montana. And they are not being held accountable for putting that money up front and doing the research and development to get them there.
Brian?
I think we should start by recognizing the seriousness of the problem. Data centers, one data center, the one currently proposed just outside of Billings and Broadview, 5,100 acres. It will take more electricity than all the residential customers in this state combined. One data center. Up to 5 million gallons of water per day. Okay? There's 11 more of them planned for the state of Montana. What's happening? Why is that happening? They're racing here because we have insufficient regulation. We still have water, although these warm days are eating it away every year. And we have relatively cheap power. So they're rushing here with their trillions of dollars, hoping to capitalize on this state before we can regulate. I think the federal government has to step in because, as you know, the state legislature only meets every 2 years, right? This is an industry that can race in here and change the state irreparably, harm it irreparably, before we even know what's hit us. We should be very upfront about what this is. This is an industry that aims to take your intelligence, your water, your power, wrap it all up in a data center, sell it back to you, and then use that product to take your job. I think we should be very, very careful about how fast we let that happen. Very careful. This is also a state that has a lot of history with corporate promises, broken ones. And so when I hear we won't degrade your water quality, put it in law. When I hear we won't raise your power rates, put it in law. Nothing should happen until we have ironclad regulations that stop that. And it should happen at the federal level, and I will fight for it.
I have a lot of questions over here. Let's go with this one. With the growing aging population, families are struggling to support their aging parents. What do you see as the role of the federal government in helping them with this challenge? Let's start with Ryan.
Man, I'm going through this myself right now. It's rough. They say nobody gets out of this life alive, and that's apparently that's true. My mom and dad are struggling with health problems, and I go back to our universal health care discussions and rural health care. The way Medicaid is degrading rural health care, making people travel, especially in rural communities. I think about a clinic in Libby. I think about a hospital in Hamilton. If we allow this Medicaid debacle to continue and these disastrous cuts, Donald Trump just said we're going to have to further cut Medicaid and health care and child care to fund $1.5 trillion military budget. Something is broken here, folks. Is there something more sacred than our parents and our kids and taking care of them? I say no. I say no to Donald Trump. I say no to degrading rural health care. I say no to stressing out people who are having to take care of their kids or their parents. We can make better decisions than that. So we need to start by making sure Medicaid and our social services are fully funded and then get to our universal health care project. The immediate need, though, is to stop, metaphorically here, stop the bleeding that's degrading our healthcare system and stressing situations like my parents in rural healthcare.
Yeah, I truly believe that a country is only as good as how good it takes care of its old, its sick, and its young. I'm sorry, but we're doing a terrible job of all three of those things right now. Leadership looks different if you lead through a servant mindset first. And so, yes, it's going to cost money. Senior care costs more than childcare. It costs more than college. It costs more than housing. Because it's all of those things combined when you're talking about round-the-clock care that includes housing, nursing care, medication, all of those things. It's expensive. That's why none of us can afford it, right? So we have to build that in as part of this, what I call my Medicare for All Plus plan. It addresses things like rural access. It addresses things like senior care. It addresses things like mental health and vision and dental. Because again, healthcare and lifelong care shouldn't be something that we put on Wall Street and say, hey, who can make money off of this? We have to start taking care of each other again. And these are people who have worked their whole life contributing to this country. I think we owe it to them to give a little bit back.
Yeah, policies first here. The solution here is actually real simple to the solution in other sectors of our economy that are not serving all of us. Social Security is set to, well, either diminish or run out of money in 7 years. And why is that? It is because after $184,000 a year, you do not pay another dollar into Social Security payroll taxes in this country. That means that we have a portion of 6 to 7% of this country that is not carrying the same weight as the rest of us when it comes to making sure that we are taking care of our seniors. We need to get rid of that payroll tax cap. There's no reason that somebody making millions a year should be paying a lower proportion of their income per year. And in a country where, well, at the current rates, I was just sitting in a mobile home with a gal who was telling me that she is paying 80 to 90% of her income every month just to keep that trailer. Social Security is not providing enough. So we should expand Social Security benefits. There is a bill in existence, Social Security Plus, to increase the payroll rate for people making over $250,000 a year. If you're making over $250,000 a year, you can afford to pay a little bit more to make sure that we do not have seniors living on the streets in this country. That's not too much to ask. And if you go down to the Poverello Center, you will find that roughly 11% of the people who are living on the streets in this city are over the age of 55 years old. That is unacceptable in a country that is by some measures the richest in the world. This is not something that we should allow our Congress to allow to continue. We should be beating this drum as loud as we possibly can, saying that everybody in this country needs to carry their own damn weight so that the oldest people in this country do not end up living on the streets.
So I want to start this one. I mean, everyone in this room, I almost guarantee, is dealing with this in some form or another. And shout out to the home care workers, the nursing home workers, those individuals, the heroes behind the scenes that are taking care of the aging population and letting them, I mean, if able, to stay in their homes. That's where they're safe, that's where they're happy. Not the forgotten heroes in any way, shape, or form, but the heroes that you don't always see that are making sure that a huge population of Americans are comfortable. And then what I'm dealing with personally in my family is the insurance that's involved in all this. It's crazy how the insurance is there to strip everything you lived for, everything that you are first. We got to get all that money out of you first, and then we'll help. It is the absolute wrong way to reward, respect somebody who's lived their entire life. The right way, to have savings, to build up, to pay off things, to have land, to have home. And then we reward them with insurance companies that come in there and try to strip it away. That has to be fixed. And so we need to get in there, and it falls under the umbrella of healthcare. I mean, rural, but in our cities in every way, shape, or form. We definitely need to get this fixed, but it's looking at the insurance companies first.
There's been some discussion tonight of universal childcare or childcare more generally. So what do you think that looks like in practice in a state like Montana, where most providers are privately owned small businesses? And how would they fit into a system of universal childcare? If you could explain how you see it working in a state like Montana and the pragmatic steps to get there. I don't know, who wants to go? No, I can't do that. That'd be chaos. Let's go, Sam.
Thank you for asking that, because this is a core part of my platform here. We should be administering this in block grants. This is how we provide some level of support for childcare providers today. And just down the street from me, we've got a home childcare center that is a lifeline for a whole lot of people in this city. And they're a lifeline because they charge radically less than what most people in Montana are paying today, when the average annual cost of childcare is just shy of $19,000 a year. That is a travesty. That's not just a travesty for people like me, who, well, if I'm working 1,000 hours of overtime, I'm not quite clearing $100,000 a year, and I'm still struggling to keep a 980 square foot home, still struggling to pay health care, and cannot conceive of how I would fit childcare into that budget. That is also a travesty for small businesses that cannot afford to operate if they cannot pay somebody enough to pay $20,000 a year for childcare, and well, another $12,000 a year for their health care, and well, another $1,600 a month for housing. That is a workforce issue. That is an issue that makes it hard to run a business in this state. That is an issue that makes it hard to raise a family in this state, and that results in a whole lot of young people not feeling a lot of hope when they look around Montana. So we should be spending exactly the kind of money it takes, and we should be getting rid of regulations that prevent small-scale childcare providers like the folks who live down the street from me from accessing that system and making that sort of childcare free, because we need every kind of model in a state like Montana where not everybody lives in a big city, but everybody who's raising a family needs somewhere that they can send their kids that is safe and quality and going to keep those kids on the track that they need to be, so that we have another generation of Montanans behind this one.
Russ. So childcare is a unique industry, one that I consider myself an expert in. I founded Rocky Mountain Kids, grew it to serve over 9,000 kids across 42 locations, was Colorado's largest childcare provider. I know how this industry works. We don't need to create a government-run childcare business. We need to support parents so that they can actually afford childcare, and simultaneously, while doing so, support the small businesses that are, some of them mom and pop shops, that are daycare centers, that are before and after school companies, that are universal pre-K businesses, that are summer camp companies. These are servants in your community that have done the work, that know how to do the work. They know about licensing, they know about ratios, they know about training their staff, all things that I'm familiar with as well. It comes down to funding. The hardest challenge is chasing money from parents, because guess what? They can't pay. And if parents don't pay the daycare facility, we can't pay our staff. And so what it comes down to, universal childcare is just based on funding these programs. Every dollar invested gives a direct $4 to $9 return on local economy. It is possible. I've done the work. I'm proud of the work I did, and I'm ready to take it to Washington and get universal childcare passed on a national stage, just like I did in Colorado, and just like I did with universal pre-K in that state as well. We can do it, guys, and we can do it this election. Thanks.
Again, this is what happens when working people do not have representation, and we don't have representation now. I had in this community yesterday had really good discussions about childcare and the way that we now have holes in our federal system. There are scholarship programs, federal scholarship programs that can help fund parents' health care, and there are spots here in town that for these kids. But because our representative has not been keeping his eye on the ball for working people, we have allowed these programs to become out of date, the ratios to be out of whack, and they can no longer get funded and get these scholarships and get their kids into these child care programs. Meanwhile, this representative in this big beautiful bill votes himself a tax break of between $270,000 and $783,000 a year. One tax break, one guy, that's our representative. The guy who has the business card right now that says representative for this district. We should not be ashamed of asking for representation for us, for parents who work, for people in this community, in Bozeman, and Hamilton, and Kalispell, and Butte, and everywhere else. We should not be ashamed of asking for the playing field to be leveled for working folks, for parents who need child care. We should not be embarrassed to say no to these tax breaks that funnel wealth upward and away from working people. We should not be embarrassed to push every single button we can for working people, parents, child care programs, health care programs. It's way past time to do it.
And then,
So the whole reason that you have childcare to begin with is to go do your career, to have a job, to afford your family. It does not make sense to have your childcare cost the same that your salary is, and that is for the working class. This isn't a millionaire's issue. This is taking care of the working class and making sure that if you have a child and you're ready to get back out in the workforce, this shouldn't be an issue that you have to battle with to make sure that you can afford to go get your job because healthcare, the child care is going to cost too much. To me, it's state-based because the state is set up to identify and work at the individual town level to make sure that the funding is there. Federally, we make sure that the federal funding is earmarked and sent to the states to be dedicated to child care. And then that way we can allow the expenses, which is exactly what matters, for the parents to decide if they can afford, if they can go out and they can have a job. So it goes back to the thought process of the individuals and making sure that we can get the cost of child care down to where the everyday Montanan that just has their family going has the opportunity to go back out, get a job that they want to do, and contribute.
I'm going to smush a couple together. There are several questions about, tangentially about Iran, but really about Israel. And one question that I'm going to read, and then I'm going to put a little addendum to, is if elected, will you support actions to discontinue aid and support to Israel? My addendum would be, and what should our policy be? What should our relationship be with Israel? Start with you, Ryan.
We have just been forced into a war of choice by another country. This war that we're fighting, that you're funding, that your tax dollars are funding, is largely a war propagated by Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. And we should not shy away from that. I'm not taking any AIPAC dollars, wouldn't dream of it. And I think we should be really wide-eyed about the degree to which Israel has too much influence over our foreign policy. I think that we should be in favor of funding and growing democracies across the globe. It's in our best interest. It has been in our best interest for the past 70-some years, and it's worked out pretty well. I don't think that's what's happening now. We don't have a functioning democracy there. We have war crimes that are happening with our tax dollars. That's immoral. It should stop. I will fight for it to stop. And if we're going to provide if we're going to provide aid to anybody, why do we not have influence over where that aid goes and what it does and what it doesn't do? Again, immoral, it should stop, and our representatives should fight for it to stop. So yes, the answer is yes.
Russ?
Yeah, I want to first start by saying I think any country, Israel included, has a right to exist without fear. But that doesn't mean that those rights can infringe upon other countries' rights or other people's rights to exist without fear as well. What we've seen happen in Gaza and Palestine is not okay. I have every reason to believe, based off of reports on the ground, based off of what we've seen on the news, that there's a genocide that has happened there. The problem is that's a legal process to define, and we can't get people on the ground even to explore that process. We have hitched our wagon so hard to Israel in turning a blind eye to their actions on a national stage that we're willing to disregard what we would hold to account any other country for the same exact violence and war crimes and violations of international law. We cannot allow another country to have that type of control on not only what we're doing in terms of sending armaments and money, but also that's an ally to the United States. So everything that they do, we too are responsible for. And it's time that we actually hold them accountable for those actions. I'm not okay with it. You shouldn't be okay with it. And I'm quite certain most of the rest of the world isn't okay with it either. And it's time we hold them to account.
I'm glad to hear that we have some agreement here. I've, like the other folks who just spoke, not taking a dime of APAC dollars here. And when I talk to friends who were overseas in the last few weeks, they share stories of 12-year-old kids who have had half of their face blown off, just living their life. Stories of kids who I'm sure a lot of you have seen, whose ribs are showing through their body because the number of calories that is being let into a place like Gaza is being counted, and it is being counted to make sure that it is not enough to survive on and to raise a child on. And that is abhorrent, and what is especially abhorrent is that it is being done with our resources, that we are spending billions of dollars a year on that in a country where, well, some of the folks that I mentioned earlier are struggling just to keep a damn roof over our head. That is not something that we should accept from our congressional representatives, and we need to have strict, enforced humanitarian requirements on any aid that we are providing to countries overseas. That needs to apply to Israel. That needs to apply to Egypt. That needs to apply to any country, because if we cannot afford to feed our hungry, if we cannot afford to make sure that the elderly in this country are not living on the streets, we sure as hell cannot afford to rain cruelty and chaos overseas, in Israel or in Iran. That is what I will fight for in Congress, and that is why I'm being real clear about this right now. And while we're doing that, well, I think we need to have a congressperson who's willing to have a conversation about where our aid dollars really can go to helping people. Rebuilding what used to be USAID, which is one of the best investments on the dollar for helping people across the country, across the world. That's what I'll be fighting for.
So, with this, I mean, I appreciate what I've heard here, but I've spent 2 years over in the Middle East, North Africa. I've been to Israel, from Bethlehem in the West Bank to Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. I've been in Pakistan and Afghanistan. I've been in Myanmar. I was in Iraq. I was in Kurdistan in northern Iraq. I know that area way better than the vast majority of Americans. And guys, we need to value our alliance with Israel, and I am in support of that because I am against hatred, I'm against racism, I'm against anti-Semitism, I'm against terrorism. We have changed the narrative in a way that we are for things that I have lived and breathed and seen firsthand over there. And if we were all held accountable for the actions of Donald Trump, we would not be happy with that. Israel has been a great country and an ally. We need a two-state solution. We have to find a way that they can coexist And the only way you're going to get and have that conversation is to sit down and be willing to be like, I understand and I know what's going on over there. And I do. I have been there, and I am going to Congress to work and help find a long-term solution so we can find peace. But it is not about putting your head in the sand and just saying that what I read on the news is right. Like, no, it takes firsthand experience.
I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to do another mushing together of two questions. Should your campaign not prevail, I'm sure you're loving this preface already, will you pledge to put all your energy into the winning candidate and encourage your campaign staff and volunteers to do the same? And then the more upside of this question, what makes you the one who should prevail come June? Let's start with Matt.
Absolutely. As we started, we have to flip this from red to blue. And the only way we're going to do that is to have Democrats and independents across the board come together, unify the message, and work towards showing that in this red district, and it is red, guys, it is, we have to behave like we know that, I love this group, but this is not the majority. And the urgency doesn't change. It's only heightened that we need to be able to work with those independents that are hungry, that are searching for somebody else to lean on and be like, give me an option. And so the reason I'm in this race, I had a great job working at Montana Farmers Union. We were doing a lot of really good things for farmers and ranchers across the state. The only example in my lifetime that we have of somebody who has won a federal race that's either been open or held by a Republican, in 45 years, we've only one time won a race like that. Senator Tester. We have no other data point to lean on for that. And I got in this race because I know that if Democrats and the urgency is there, that we have to flip this house. I am that type of candidate. I can sit down with those voters who aren't sure yet and show them a path to help us get 51% of the vote. I'm Matt Raines. Thank you very much.
Sam?
I just want to be sure. Is this our closing? We got.
Actually, I kind of jumped the gun because it
Yeah,
felt
I know.
like it.
I mean, I'm not the organizer. Yeah, there is.
Okay.
This is the closing.
Technically, we're
Wait,
done.
can take it back if we want more questions. I didn't mean to do
No,
that.
I'm getting tired. I'm stealing stuff from MSU. That's never good. So, sorry, Sam.
Parting is bittersweet. Well, how do we win this seat? What are all these campaigns about? It's about actually winning, because the stakes feel so high. And whoever wins this primary, absolutely, I will throw my weight behind. I will also be looking for a job. Because I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of resources, and I was scraping by before running this campaign. That is what most Montanans experience is like today in this state, and that is actually fundamental to how we start winning back all of the folks that we just lost last election. Because last year, a majority of people making under $100,000 a year did not vote for Democrats. Last year, about half of union members in this state did not vote for a Democrat. Last year, a whole lot of young people in this state, the sort of young people who got John Tester elected in 2018 with record high youth turnout, they stayed home or swung to the right. Those are all the folks that we need to win back urgently right now. All of those people are me. I know what it is like to be working 3 jobs at a time and still end up paying my rent on a credit card. That is a frustrating, angering experience. I know what it is like to be watching my union members be fired even when they're making $14 an hour maintaining our public lands. So how do we win those folks back? We run a working person who knows what it's like to be on the wrong end of all of these broken systems and is going to fight like hell to fix it. We run our first union member in over a decade, so we can reach back out to unions like the 7 locals and the AFL-CIO who have endorsed this campaign and bring them back into the Democratic Party, because that has to be our base. And we show a lot of young people in this state who have seen the National Democratic Party keep the doors of change closed for too darn long, that a person like us can run for Congress and that we can actually make a difference and we can win. It is going to take all of us, of all ages and all backgrounds, to make that happen. I would love your help with that on June 2nd when the primary comes around. Thank you for your time.
I just want to start by saying I disagree with Matt. I think his comments on Israel are incredibly short-sighted. We need leaders who are willing to call it like it is, willing to call out injustice, willing to call out corruption, willing to say no to corporate PAC money, to special interest money, giving power to people who don't deserve it, because it's you all who should have the power and be calling the shots, not the wealthiest, not corporations, not allies, none of that. I'm tired of that. We need a different type of leader who's going to show up, who's going to speak out, and who's going to actually lead with integrity. And those are all things that I have already done. I have the proof in the pudding to show you that I've done the work. So these guys are amazing guys. And I'll support any of them that get elected, but I'm asking you for your vote because what I bring is something different. 25 years of experience doing the work. A campaign that has run only on individual contributions. 50,000 miles driven across the state of Montana over the last year, connecting with tens of thousands of Montanans that aren't just Democrat, which, by the way, is what we actually need to win in November. And so my ask of you tonight is to think about November. June is not that far away, but we need someone who can connect with the rural communities, who can bring progressives and Democrats and independents and moderate conservatives together to actually create real change and to get us out of this dark moment that we're in. And that is what I'm running for, to represent you all. My name is Russ Cleveland. I'd appreciate your vote, and volunteer if you'd like.
I'd like to start with a common theme here: rhetoric matching action. That's what I'm about. And we should acknowledge that the seriousness of this campaign, this election, this seat, the future of our democracy, the future of our state, could well run through this seat right here. And we should all of us, address it with that level of seriousness. So of course, I mean, isn't it cool to have 4 people who want to do this job? Like, that's amazing. And if I say that this is an existential crisis, that our democracy may depend on taking back the House of Representatives, and I believe that it will, then of course I'll support whoever wins. Of course. I'm doing this because I believe I'm the one who can win the general. I believe that I'm the one to represent you. You deserve somebody to fight for you. You deserve somebody who has proven they'll fight for you. I live in a red part of the state. I grew up around Republican folks. My family is Republican. My neighbors are Republican. But they're good people. I talk to them every day. And we can win them over. But we have to prove to them we're the kind of Democrat that will fight for them too. And that's the difference between us and the guy that's in the office right now. He'll fight for his constituents, his rich buddies, but he won't fight for everybody. I'll fight for everybody in this district. I want your vote. I'm Ryan Bussey. Let's go get this thing done.
Is on? And that's our show. Give it up for our 4 candidates. Really appreciate y'all coming tonight. Just a reminder, if you can, join us on May 2nd at the Pat and Carol Williams Dinner, which is our big fundraiser for Democratic candidates. If you could do me a huge favor, on your way out the door, stop by the table and give them the pens that we handed you.